so we can start the presentation. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay. Can you see my camera?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Joy. And well, as Joy said, I am a chemist, right? But I feel pretty passionate about astronomy in general. So every time I have the chance, I look for this opportunity to understand astrochemistry and astrobiology mainly. And I am pretty happy today of having this great opportunity to share with you some of my knowledge. And well, let's hope that you will enjoy this conference as long as I will. And in order to understand the aims of this conference, let me share with you the content that I am going to cover, starting with the basic questions that have led the humanity along the search of life in the universe. Then I will expose a brief history of astrobiology, of course, to continue with a little description of what are we looking for as life, right? And what are the conditions that are necessary for life. And finally, I will talk about some of the most interesting facts of life on other planets. And well, I suppose that we all are here because we feel curious to know if we are alone in the universe, right? And let me tell you that I believe this is a pretty normal question. It's like we as humans has this super necessity of knowing if we are special. And that's how some questions like, are we the only living beings in the universe? Or are we unique in our universe? Or are we part of a cosmic society? Take form. And now I want to know some of your opinions, so please put yes or no in the chat so we can discuss a little bit about it. I will give you some seconds. Yes, we are alone. We are not. Okay. We are not alone. Yeah. Yeah, I know that many of you were going to say that we are not alone because I believe the same. And for those who said no, let me tell you that some scientists from the University of Nottingham believes the same and support your opinion with some calculations. Even they published a paper last year saying that there must be at least 36 civilizations in our galaxy. Okay? They say that not only there is life in our Milky Way, but also it is intelligent life and that they will be able to communicate with us. Okay. But we haven't found them yet. Yeah, that's something that I think is pretty interesting, but scary too. And nowadays, this kind of study are a hot topic because of the most recent advances in technology and biotechnology, space technology and biotechnology. And the name of the field related to the study of the origin, evolution, distribution, and future of life in the universe is known as astrobiology. And well, I am going to mention this concept along the conference because If we want to know if we are alone in the universe, we had to study the astrobiology. Okay, this is the field of science that studies the presence of other living beings in the universe. But before we could use that term, there was a long path, okay? So now I'm going to introduce you a brief history of astrobiology, which we could say that started in 300 BC, when Epicurus suggested the existence of life on other places in the universe. And this was a brilliant idea for those times, but it was not really supported because there was another philosopher known as Aristoteles who strongly defended the idea that actually our planet was the center of the universe. So we had to be special, right? There was no chance for other civilizations to take our special place in the universe, right? And whoever dared to mention a different idea was accused for heresy. And it was not until 1543 that Copernicus published his book on the terms of the celestial orbs, explaining his observations of the planets and coining the heliocentric theory, that the idea of the existence of other civilizations was considered again. And this idea took form a little bit more after the publication of The Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin, almost 300 years later. And as we know, he dedicated these books for the explanation of the evolution, leaving behind the creationism ideas and opening the path to the acceptance of natural science in the explanation of how the humanity ended up being what it is. But the first person to ever mention the concept astrobiology was Gabriel Adrianovich, just in the middle of the past century. And since then, there have been some programs dedicated to the searching of life in the universe, like the SETI program launched by the NASA on 1984, in which the famous astronomer and hero of many of us, I think, Carl Sagan, participated actively. But sadly, almost after 40 years later of non-satisfactory results, this program was canceled. Yeah. Nevertheless, thanks to this program, we know the famous wow signal. Okay. I don't know if you have ever heard about this signal, but it is known as the only proof that we have of intelligence beyond Earth. It was a signal that detected radio frequency waves coming from a unknown place on the space. And well, in those two programs that I mentioned before, the expected results were pretty ambitious, don't you think? Scientists were looking for living beings with the ability to communicate with us, but we didn't even knew if there were basic forms of life. So now they are mainly interested in finding the most basic form of life that we know, the cell, the fundamental unit of all the living beings in the universe that we know, right? On Earth. So now they are not expecting to find a cat, a rabbit, or something similar to us, to humans, right? It would be awesome, but pretty difficult and scary too. So no, they are just looking for organisms that are able to perform metabolism, possess genetic information, and a cellular structure that allows those things, okay? It doesn't matter if it is a cell similar to an eukaryotic cell, like those that are present in animals, or a prokaryotic cell, right? Like those in bacteria. They just want to know if there are organisms that are capable of absorbing energy to perform a series of reactions, right? Like the plants, for example. They absorb the carbon dioxide and organic matter, and then after a couple of reactions, they release oxygen and fruits, for example, sugars. Or us, the humans, also have that ability, right? Because we are made of cells. We absorb the sugars from our aliments, for example, and we have the ability to transform them into carbon dioxide and organic matter. as a final step of our metabolism. So, we mainly need complex organic molecules like proteins, amino acids, and lipids to consider the existence of life, right? But then we have a problem that in the time of the primitive Earth, there was mainly inorganic matter, inert matter, right? So how did those complex molecules emerge? How did the first cell appear on Earth? How was it possible if we know that in primitive Earth there wasn't any cell? How did they suddenly appear? Well, as the philosopher Parmenides said, from nothing comes nothing, referring to the existence of life. So, if there was not a single molecule on primitive Earth that allowed the creation of life, how did it appear? Or maybe it didn't appear, right? It arrived from outer space, maybe from somewhere else where the conditions for life were better, right? And unknown yet. And somehow, maybe through a meteorite, it arrived to Earth. Who knows? Well, and this idea that suggests that life originated on Earth, originated out of space, and then moved to Earth is known as the panspermia theory. But of course, not all the scientists support this idea. And along the years, there are some of them who have been trying to prove that life originated on Earth and only on Earth. One of them were Millie and Hury. They were two scientists that in the year of 1953 developed an amazing experiment using a system like the one that is shown on the screen, okay, to to represent the conditions that were present in the primitive Earth, right? There were just simple gases like methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. And they put those gases in an evaporation flask with water to simulate the natural water steam that was and is present on Earth atmosphere, right? And then those gases were dragged to a second flask where we had two electrodes to produce energy in the form of electricity, right? And this was simulating like a thunder that could have happened in the primitive Earth, right? And the aim of this was to prove that under primitive Earth conditions, some important organic molecules could be produced. And well, let me tell you that the results of these experiments were absolutely amazing because after a week, they observed that some amino acids that are now present in living organisms appeared. Yeah, they were here. So yeah, a couple of heroes, if you ask me. And this experiment changed everything. It opened a new path to a series of later experiments that tried to prove the same, right? But with different conditions. And it gave rise to a new branch of science known as prebiotic chemistry. And this is how it looked like. And thanks to them, some other interesting experiments like the one done by John Sutherland in 2015 took place, right? I am a little excited about this experiment because it's going to be amazing. Prepare your brain. What they did is to prepare some amines. They used molecules molecules that they knew that there were present on primitive Earth, right? Hydrogen cyanide, acetylene, and formaldehyde, using a salt of phosphate as a catalyst. And after a couple of hours, they obtained some amines, and then they exposed those amines under UV light. And the results were that of all the variety of amines that they obtained, only the adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and uracil survive. And well, why is this so important? This is really important and really mind-blowing because these are the amines that are present in the genetic code, right? These are known as the nucleotides that are present in all the living organisms on Earth. So now that we have an idea of what scientists are looking for, we have to know where could they find them. Where could they find them? So we used to believe that water, energy, a source of elements like carbon, moderated pH, moderated temperature, and a radiation source were all necessary. But now we know that they are not, okay? Because there have been found some microorganisms in places like the Tin River, which is an extremely acid place. It has a value of 2 in the pH scale, but there are organisms. There are also organisms in places like the Antarctica with extremely cold temperatures, and also organisms in volcanic places with very high temperatures. And also, there are microorganisms in the deep of the ocean, where the radiation of the sun is minimum. But let me tell you that not only organisms, not only unicellular organisms are able to survive in those extreme conditions. There is a special case of an animal known as tardigrades that has shown an amazing resistance against acidic and basic conditions and extremely high and low temperatures, and also high levels of radiation. So maybe someday they are going to rule this world. Who knows? And what does it have to say that all the life on Earth shares some characteristics? Well, it could be that tardigrades is the name of the animal. He looks like this. Okay. And okay, so what does it have to say that all the life on Earth shares some characteristics? Well, it could be because it is the only way that life can exist in all the universe, right? Or maybe not. Maybe they are just the most feasible solutions that life has found to prosper in our environment, in our planet, right? But they could be different in another planet, we don't know. Or maybe they are all similar because all the life on Earth comes from a common ancestor known as Luca, last universal common ancestor. And of course, this common ancestor would have to contain carbon, the most basic element for life due to characteristics like covalent bond formation, the large versatility, okay? So it can form single, double, and triple bonds. Also, it can form linear chain or reinformations. And it also has a moderate bond stability over the Earth's temperature range, right, of 25 Celsius. And also, it is on the top 12 of the most abundant elements on the Earth crust. Yeah, nice. But we have 11 elements above carbon, right? Why not using one of these elements instead of carbon? Like silicon, for example. It is pretty similar to carbon. It can form covalent bonds, has a large versatility to form single, double, and triple bonds, and it can form linear chains or ring formations. But, well, why not silicon? Under the air conditions, it exhibits a low stability for the silicon-silicon bonds and silicon-hydrogen bonds. And it also exhibits a higher stability for the silicon oxygen bonds, right? Which would difficult the possibility of silicon to react with another molecule other than oxygen. But we must not forget that these disadvantages are present only under the Earth conditions. But in another planet with another conditions, with another temperature maybe, silicon-silicon bonds could be more stable than carbon-carbon bonds. And now talking about the hydrogen, the, the main function of this element is to provide the structural characteristics through hydrogen bonds, okay? Like in the DNA. The nitrogen and sulfur are important because they are present and they are the basis of amino acids and proteins. And the phosphorus, of course, is really important because it is the basis of the cell membrane, which defines the structure of life. So defining these characteristics, now we can look for similar forms of life in the universe, and one of them is the most studied planets. One of the most studied planets for this purpose is Mars, right? So I remember that since I was a child, almost every year I heard some news that they have found water on Mars. I don't know if you remember, but they always found water in the form of ice. And that's not really pretty important. Well, it is, but not as important as it should. Why? Because the really important thing about water is that it is useful as a solvent for the chemical reactions. So it is not pretty exciting to find water in the form of ice because we want to have it in the liquid form to move the molecules, right, and produce reactions. And just 2 years ago, in 2019, the NASA finally found liquid water on the subsoil of Mars. That's why many researchers now are focusing on this planet. But of course, it presents some disadvantages for harbor life, like the lack of a magnetic field to protect life from the radiation of the sun. And Mars, in fact, used to have this magnetic field, but after a couple of years, almost about 4,000 millions of years ago, Mars lost the protection, right? Anyhow, thanks to recent findings of water, scientists are really interested in Mars again. And also, there are some interesting experiments that have been carried out with incredible results, like the Viking experiments in 1968. They were two. Well, there were mainly two. And the first one consists in taking a sample of Mars, of the soil of Mars, and then they add some nutrients, radioactive nutrients, to see if after a couple of hours it released any any molecules with radioactive oxygen, right? Like the process that the humans do. We absorb some nutrients and then we release carbon dioxide, right? So they wanted to see if that was possible on Mars. And the second experiment was pretty similar, but in the opposite way. They took a sample of the Mars soil and they add radioactive carbon dioxide, and they wanted to see if it released any organic molecule with a radioactive carbon. Okay. And guess what? Both of these experiments were positive. Okay. The first sample did release carbon dioxide with a radioactive carbon. Okay. And the second one did release some sugars with radioactive carbon. But the results weren't really reliable because they were positive just for a short period of time. And the technology of that time wasn't the best. So actually, they are repeating these experiments with a better technology nowadays. And another reason to study Mars is the famous Martian meteorite found in 1984, which had a tubular microscopic structure similar to those that are present on bacteria from Earth. Okay, but they consider that the size of this shape was pretty small to harbor life. until 2015, when scientists found a bacteria with a similar size to this. Okay. But well, Mars is not the only planet in our solar system that has been interesting in the last couple of years. And I know that some of you will remember news like this one. Last year, there was a massive avalanche of information saying that there is life in Venus, right? And some of those, well, all of those news were based on the same paper, this one. Okay, in this paper, scientists were saying that they found phosphine gas in the cloud decks of Venus. Okay, and the special thing about phosphine is that it is considered an indicator of life because it is produced mainly by living beings. Okay. Also, the concentrations that they found in the clouds of Venus were pretty high. They were like 20 parts per billion, okay? And they were in the atmosphere of Venus. And they said that those concentrations could only mean that there is life on Venus. And even though Venus is a pretty hot place, there are some areas where the temperature is cool for life. And most important, the phosphine concentrations that they found were in that specific area, okay? About 50 kilometers from the surface of Venus. So scientists had two important coincidences to suspect of the existence of life on Venus, right? But then this paper went viral, and then many people started doing questions and repeated the experiments, reading the article and saying that there were some suspicious data. So the actual status of the paper says that it is in revision. Okay, here we have an editor notes. Because some people who repeated the experiment said that they detected phosphine concentrations of 1 part per billion, not 20. Okay, and those levels can be explained by natural processes like volcanic eruptions, not necessarily life. Okay, so as long as we know, there is no life on Venus yet. And finally, why do we want to know if there is life beyond Earth? Well, it would help to search for a different panorama of what life is, which will enrich the understanding of the biological systems known to this date. Also, in the case of finding extraterrestrial life, it would be possible to obtain genetic information that allow us to decipher which variants favor a biological system under different conditions than Earth, right? And the most interesting reason, in my opinion, the possibility of expanding humanity into new territories. And before we conclude, I wanted to share with you a study that I had the opportunity to work in 2017, almost 4 years ago. So in this project, we wanted to confirm the existence of a cataclysmic variable. I don't know if you know that concept, but someone raised their hand. Uh, yes. Well,
I guess it was by mistake.
okay, thank you, Joy. So with this project, we wanted to confirm the existence of a cataclysmic variable. Okay, this is a system formed by two stars, usually a white dwarf and a giant red, and the second star is orbiting the first star. Okay, because we know that white dwarfs are really massive. Okay, so the first thing we did was to observe the system with a telescope for a period of 3 days. Okay, 3 nights to collect the. Okay, thank you, Joy. Okay, to collect the emission data that we needed to construct the Doppler tomograph. Okay, which is a map. This is the Doppler tomograph, a map that indicates the ubication of the elements in the cataclysmic variable. The X here, okay, the little cross here indicates the position of the white dwarf. And this is the position of the giant red. And the hydrogen and helium that we found were mainly in these areas, okay? This is for hydrogen and this is for helium. And this is the emission spectra that we obtained, okay? And that's all. Well, this is an example of how you can know some of the chemical elements that are present in a star. So it doesn't matter if you're a chemist, I don't know, a physic, and whatever you want to be, as long as you have the opportunity to enroll in some activity that you really like and understand. Okay. Thank you all for your attention and keep on with your studies. Maybe you will be the next Stephen Hawking. Who knows? Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, for this amazing, amazing presentation. So now we will have a Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, please, you can either raise your hand or you can write your question in the chat. Okay, so I will start. Do you think that we will ever find intelligent life in your opinion, Diana? Intelligent life.
Mm, I think we are pretty close to that answer, but maybe the conditions are not the best because we are not really able to travel wherever we want, right? Some of the experiments will take a lot of time, and maybe I will not be able to know because I will die before that happens. But I do believe that humanity will find someday intelligent life or basic life in another place other than Earth.
Thank you. So we have a question on the chat.
I can't see it. Let me. We have. Do you have any thoughts about colonization of Europa, one of the Jupiter moons? Yeah, the Jupiter moons are, yeah, are a problem, right? Well, are interesting because we have, I believe, 3 different moons that may allow life, but all of them have some disadvantages. I remember that I have some notes here. Okay, so Titan is pretty cold, okay, for life, and Europe is a promising moon until now, and also Enceladus. Okay, so I think that we must try with those 2 moons. As long as I know, they still interested in Enceladus and in Europe. Do you think that we will be able to travel through wormholes one day? I don't know. I am not really an expert about wormholes. Mm, nah, I don't know what to say about it. What do you think, Joy?
Well, I think that maybe we never know.
Yeah, we
Well,
never know.
yeah, like in the movie Interstellar. If you have any questions, guys, do not hesitate to ask. Don't be shy.
Yeah, don't worry. What is the limitation? Okay, now we have two questions. What is the limitation of the current technology in searching for life on other planets? That's a good question. That's a hard question because I know that scientists have achieved really, really important advances in space technology, but they have been so many that I don't really know where they are right now at this moment. Do you believe that life can be possible as organic life forms? Okay, there have been papers suggesting silicon-based life, less likely purchase, or life forms in stars. Yeah, I do have hope. I do feel really, really excited about finding another forms of life, mainly silicon forms of life, because it would be pretty similar to us, but also pretty different. What do you think about the wow signal? The same as the other scientists think. I have no idea what happened there. Would it be possible to manipulate Mars' atmosphere by dumping Earth bacteria in it? Mm, that's an interesting question. Mm, maybe, but it would have to be like genetic, um, like a different microorganism, right? Like one that was made specifically for that purpose, because us and the other microorganisms that harbor Earth are not able to survive in Mars conditions because there is a lot of radiation due to the lack of the magnetic field. So they would have to be very special microorganisms, maybe designed in a lab that would be able to survive to those high levels of radiation. Can minerals be hosts for life? Are mineral-based life form possible as well? Mm, minerals like only inorganic matter? Mm, I don't believe. Well, based on my knowledge, I think that it is pretty hard to find mineral life, okay? Because we wouldn't have a cell. So what would we have if we don't have a cell? Almost the whole cell is made of organic matter. Okay, the membrane and all the other stuff, the DNA is organic matter. So mineral-based life would be difficult to believe. Do you think future quantum computers would make a big change in such discoveries? Okay, interesting question. mm, there also have been important advances in the computers, right? They allow us to see a black hole, for example, like 2 years ago. And yes, of course, they would make the results to more quick, right? Okay, we would get the results in an effective way. But I have no really the idea of how much the computers will affect these investigations. But yeah, it is an interesting question. What do you think about the search for phosphorus in stars before studying the planets orbiting them? Okay, well, The search for phosphorus in stars. No, I didn't know about it. Do you want to share something about the phosphorus in the stars, please, to everybody? Because I have no idea. Rolf?
Okay, in the meantime, we have Mariam who raised her hand, so I will ask her to unmute and she can ask her question.
Okay.
Oh, hello, Diana.
Hello.
Thank you for your presentation. It was so awesome.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask that what if they really found space creatures or aliens, but they killed the astronauts or something like that? So who said that these aliens would be friendly to us? Maybe they are not, or something like that. And why we're so confident that we would find one and they will be friendly or they would communicate with us or something like that?
Yeah, that's a problem. Even Stephen Hawking suggested to stop looking for life in the universe. And he did a specific um, observation, right? He said that we should not look for life that is closer to the center of the universe because it is pretty possible that they are older living beings and more intelligent beings, right? So maybe they would um, explode us, right? They would be mean with us because they would be more intelligent. And what do humans do when we are more intelligent than, for example, a dog or a fish? We convert them into our slaves or something like that, right? So that would happen if we find older civilizations, maybe. Yeah, it's an interesting point of view. Thank you for your question. Okay, Ralph says that there was a study that there should be a certain phosphorus in stars for life to exist in planets that orbit this star. I didn't know about it. Thank you. Civilizations near the center are older. Yeah, well, they they might be because when when the Big Bang happened, okay, it expanded. Okay, so maybe this is the center, and maybe this planet is older than Earth. Okay, it was created before Earth. It developed a civilization before Earth, and then we were created. Okay, after a long period of time before after that planet. Okay, so maybe if we focus on finding civilizations that are closer to the origin of everything, they would be older civilizations because that planet would be older. That's why Stephen Hawking said that. When centers be more prone to accidents, um, what do you mean? You can you can share some ideas with us if you want. I also want to learn with you some facts. Cosmic accidents. Mm, well, I don't know. Really, I don't know. I will check it because it's it's an interesting question. Thank you. Thank you. What is the meaning of civilization here? Something that includes humans or possibly other beings too. Where civilization like intelligent forms of life, okay? Not only microorganisms, no, but really intelligent forms of life, like us. Not specifically humans, but something similar, yeah. Do you know about any experiments that have been done through which life has been introduced to another planet? No, I don't know if they have done any of it, but they will, I think. Elon Musk is doing some crazy stuff. Do you believe that multiverse exist? Mm, yeah, I think it is a possibility. Yep. Okay. What if wow signal ends up debunked like so too? Well, wow is a very old signal, and along all of these years, they haven't found a reason for that signal. Okay, some people have been trying to explain the reason, but they they, they haven't succeeded. But look, almost there have been almost 40 years since the wow signal. Have you heard about the conspiracy theory where there is a civilization older than us in the center of the earth, where you can access it from North Pole? Mm, no, I haven't. That you know, is that a theory? A real theory? Okay, no, I haven't heard about that. I will check it. What is your favorite space teen movie? Mine is Contact, written by Carl Sagan. I haven't seen that movie, but I like Interstellar a lot. I think that the art and the science behind that movie is pretty well done. The Martian is amazing as well. Yeah, I have heard about that movie too. Thank you for your recommendations, Marco. Marcos.
Well, if you, okay, we have another question.
Okay. My question is not related to the topic, but do you know of any astronomers related master's program for a chemistry student? No, I don't know. But there must be some of them, many of them, I think. Oh, well, I know that in some places like um, Netherlands and stuff and places like that, they they teach astrochemistry in some of their programs, in some of their chemistry programs, but they don't offer like a degree in astrochemistry. Is it possible to discuss something with your club, for example, with with my club? Well, I follow your club on Instagram already, so maybe we can talk interesting stuffs by Instagram if you want. Or if you have a Facebook page, you can add me. It would be great. Thank you. So, any other question here?
Well, if anyone has more questions, do not hesitate to ask them. You can either raise your hand or type them on the chat. Okay, so we will wait for like, okay, we have a new question.
I always heard about clone Earth. Is that actually possible? Like in a multiverse? No, Diana Molina says, not a question. Just wanted to say that you're awesome. Thank you. You're awesome too. Yeah, says, yes, in the same context. Uh, about the Earth clone, right? Well, I don't know as much as I would like to about multiverse, but I know that there is a huge acceptance of that theory. So yeah, I believe that it would be possible to have a clone Earth. Yep. But yeah, I don't know as much as I would like about multiverse. And Mia
Okay,
says, how are you? Fine, thank you.
okay, so
Zoe,
this, yeah, this will be the last question for today. Okay,
okay.
so
Where do you think you will want to go for your research? I forgot, but you are doing bachelor still or moving into further studies. Yeah, I have the same question. What will I do? No, uh, I would like to focus on organic chemistry by now because I like it a lot. And also, as you can see, organic chemistry is pretty important for astrobiologists. So maybe I can work with organic chemistry and then I can work with astrophysics or something like that. That's my idea. Okay, thank you, Joy.
as so we might uh, upload the video, the recording of this presentation on YouTube. So we will keep you updated. And thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you, Diana, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So we will so we will end the meeting now. And thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all.